This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated. Jihadist Psychopath by Dr. Jamie Glazov. I will tell you as an expert on Sharia, as a former child bride who has suffered and faced my own jihadi psychopath, I want you to go and order this book on Amazon.com or go to jamieglazov.com. Get a copy for yourself. You know why? Because you need to be equipped with the knowledge to fight our enemies so you can save your daughters and your granddaughters from future of Islam.
Good evening. Welcome to the Jamie Glazov Moment. Tonight, the hijab and non-Muslim women's cultural appropriation. My friends, I've been thinking about cultural appropriation lately more and more in connection to all the non-Muslim women in our world that are surrendering to Sharia and trying to show their respect to Sharia law by putting the hijab on. And it's a very interesting phenomenon, but I can't help from thinking about cultural appropriation at the same time and how awful and oppressive it is and how social justice warriors are always reprimanding those people who are engaged in cultural appropriation. Now, I'm trying to get it right. I'm very confused by it. Please write me and get in touch or leave some comments under this video and tell us your thoughts. Now, I think cultural appropriation, in terms of what I'm trying to learn, is when members of a culture adopt elements from members of another culture or from another culture, and that's very bad. Now, it's especially very bad when it's a dominant culture that's appropriating from an oppressed minority culture. So, in the recent past, Kylie Jenner and Katy Perry were reprimanded and recriminated and chastised. They were denounced by the PC police for wearing cornrows. That was exploiting black culture. So they were really, really reprimanded for that one. Now, there's some other things that went on, you know, as an example about, you know, hairstyles, who can wear whose hairstyle. So this became actually quite famous, this particular event. Now, at San Francisco State University, a couple years back, we know of this case where the black female student or the employee at the university at that time had confronted and assaulted an evil white male student for his cultural appropriation because he was wearing dreadlocks. And in that video, there's a video of it, we're going to play the clip. It's very interesting. Watch how she puts her hands on him, grabs him, pulls him. She's assaulting him. She puts her hands on him and pulls him back near the end of the clip when he tries to get away. And when he tries to push her off of him and to free himself, she says, watch the clip, she says, "Don't put your hands on me." I find that one of the most interesting and most important scenes, a second in our time, a moment in our time. It's the key to the cry bully. It's the key to the totalitarian orchestra, to the totalitarian enterprise. A person that's assaulting you, pushing you, grabbing you, and when you try to free yourself, they scream, "Don't put your hands on me." Very, very revealing, but also educational in terms of cultural appropriation. Let's watch the clip.
You're saying that I can't have a hairstyle because of your culture? Why?
Because it's my culture. Do you know what box means?
Do you know it was an Egyptian culture? Are you Egyptian? Nah, bro, you're not.
Are you Egyptian? Are you Egyptian?
No, but it doesn't matter.
Wait, where's Egypt? Tell me.
You know what, girl?
Where's Egypt?
Dude, girl, you have no right to tell me what I can not wear. Huh?
Where's Egypt?
Yo, girl, stop touching me right now.
Yo, girl, stop touching me right now. Come back.
Get off of me.
Come back, come back, come back. You put your hands on me, no worries.
What? But you know, make such
your
a shit
hands on
because
me.
of what the hair I have? That's no reason, yo. I don't need your disrespect. I don't need your disrespect.
Why are you filming this?
Just for everyone's safety.
Wow, very, very interesting. He was oppressing her so much at that time and oppressing so many people in the world for how he was wearing his hair. She really, really needed to chastise him. It was very important. And why was he putting his hands on her? She really had to tell him at the end, don't put your hands on me. My friends, Bill Whittle has done a very educational, very important video on this. And that's not part of my sarcasm. Bill Whittle, really, really very, very brilliant man, has done a brilliant video. It's called Appropriate This. Just Google it, Bill Whittle, Appropriate This, and it was a Truth Revolt video. Watch it. And he reveals a lot of the just absurdity in all of this, the double standards and all this. And he, you know, discusses how, you know, as a white male, how terribly offended he is when white male culture is exploited and appropriated. And he makes a lot of very good points. You know, for instance, Steve Jobs was white and invented the smartphone, and now we have all the minorities appropriating white culture by using the smartphone. And Bill Whittle gets into the internet, social media, antibiotics, a lot of things that white people created. And it's an interesting, important point to make. And again, we put something on the table for this discussion in terms of how cultural appropriation works. So that particular white male student is chastised for how he wears his hair, but minority people, quote unquote, can use the smartphone, and that's okay. So let's continue this discussion with a bit of my confusion. As we know, New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern recently donned the hijab. She put on the hijab, and she had also ordered a national broadcast of the Islamic call to prayer and called on all New Zealand women to wear the hijab. And this was all in response to the shooting in the mosques recently at Christchurch, that awful massacre, which we all condemn, that awful, low-life, monstrous murder that carried out that massacre. Anybody with, you know, any morality and ethics and grace condemns something like that. And the whole world condemned that, including the truth tellers about Islam. And here at the Glazov Gang, you know, I've made a video on this. It is why I'm saying this also. It's not just important to say in and of itself, but there's this constant propaganda that somehow truth tellers about Islam support something like that, or have instigated something like that, or inspired something like that. And that's all BS. And we condemn any taking of human life, of innocent human life, and an awful thing that happened. But while all of us can condemn the taking of innocent life, whether it's Muslim or non-Muslim, the next step in terms of what the world is engaging in is a little bit problematic, to say the least. Yes, you can offer your condolences, you can denounce violence, but to start silencing the truth-telling about Islam and to start enforcing a submission to Sharia and to start forcing people to engage in Sharia practices, this is a whole other matter. And yeah, I'll take a little detour again right here for a second, because it's so bizarre what's happening. So now after this has happened, instead of just offering condolences and a denunciation of violence and of low-life monsters that take that engage in any kind of violence against innocent human life, be it Muslim or non-Muslim, submission to Sharia has started. People are women are putting on the hijab, and there's broadcast of Islamic call to prayers. I just have a question here. A priest was recently stabbed in Montreal. I have to ask, I didn't see the Prime Minister Trudeau, leaders, the media, other authorities, other faith members. I didn't see anybody encouraging everyone to start wearing crucifixes. I didn't see everyone, you know, all other religions, including Muslims, including everybody. I didn't see this mass gathering of people publicly and loudly verbalizing the Our Father and Hail Mary. Did I miss this? Why did it happen? Why, for instance, after, let's say, a jihadist attack on Jews, when we see Jews attacked in terms of jihadist attacks, I'm just curious, why don't we see Muslims dress up, for instance, in Jewish religious attire? Why don't we see, for instance, Muslims maybe even dress up as Hasidic Jews as a gesture? Why don't we see Muslims going to their local synagogue just to offer their condolences? Am I missing something? How come when there's maybe a jihad attack, we don't see, you know, Muslims in Saudi Arabia and in the Palestinian territories in Gaza going to a local mosque to express their solidarity with the Jewish people? Why don't we see Muslims going to a synagogue, again, in Saudi Arabia and in Gaza? Oh, I wonder, maybe there's a problem because there are no synagogues there, and maybe because Jewish people would just be killed upon sight if they're seen by anybody in a lot of these regions and environments, especially, as we know, let's say in the Palestinian territories. Something to think about. Something to think about. We don't see the things that I just mentioned, but for some reason, right now, more and more we see non-Muslim women donning the hijab, wearing the hijab. And there's a lot to be said about that. We've discussed that on the Glazov Gang many times in terms of this submission to Sharia, in terms of what the hijab actually represents, which is a submission to Sharia, and then there's other details to get into there. But tonight, I began with, and I want to end with, cultural appropriation, because I've been wondering, how does this work? Where are all the social justice warriors? Where's the PC police that are against this horrible crime of cultural appropriation? Where are they stopping the non-Muslim women from this crime of cultural appropriation when they put the hijab on? Am I not understanding something? Am I missing something? Because this is a bit on my mind. The social justice warriors, the left, they're very much against cultural appropriation. So where are they to reprimand the non-Muslim women putting on the hijab? For instance, the female black student or the university employee of the video that I had shown when she assaulted that white male student. Where is she? Why isn't she patrolling the San Francisco State University or wherever she may be today, wherever she is? Why isn't she patrolling the streets, wherever academic institution she is, or maybe she's somewhere else now, to reprimand the non-Muslim women in hijab and to assault them and grab them and to chastise them? Why? Am I missing something here? Maybe I am. Is it because of the hijab is religious and not cultural? So religious appropriation is okay? But are we really sure that the left even knows the difference between the religious and cultural appropriation in this particular context? Because almost every leftist I talk to has no idea what the hijab is and what it originates in and where it originates from. Because whenever you talk to leftists, whenever you see leftists when it comes to the hijab, they're always defending the hijab. And one of the ways they protect hijab is to say that we have to respect Muslims as culture. It's their culture. That's what we hear leftists say a lot. So, but if it's Muslims as culture, why is it okay to appropriate their culture? But it's not okay to appropriate culture anywhere else. I would like some feedback on this from our viewers, from our supporters. Write to us, make a comment on our video. Am I missing something? Again, maybe I am missing something, because I was thinking of this also. Maybe we shouldn't criticize this whole movement in terms of making non-Muslim women wear the hijab, even if it's cultural appropriation, because maybe this is a very kind thing to do by the religion of peace. Because when the when the non-Muslim women put on the hijab, maybe this is Islam's way of helping liberate these non-Muslim women, and also just helping them on the road to make further steps, you know, to finally put on a niqab in the end, where there will only be the slit right here where they can see out of their eyes, and then maybe just go the whole way and just put that whole burqa on. Maybe it's just a good start. And maybe it's just a good start. It's a very benevolent, kind thing to do by the religion of peace, by getting all of this to happen, and by the left encouraging it, because it's just that first step on your way to forced marriage and female genital mutilation, and in the end, maybe even an honor killing. But perhaps it's a very kind thing to do that the left and the Islamic supremacists are doing together by encouraging all of this hijab wearing, because when they do that, they're helping these non-Muslim women not get raped and molested in the future. Because we do know what the hijab is really about, don't we? We have read Quran, right? Quran chapter 24, verse 31. Quran chapter 33, verse 59. Wonder if that has anything to do with why members of the religion of peace so often are raping women that don't wear hijab. Like what's happening, for instance, in Western Europe, if we're watching what's happening in France and in Sweden and in so many areas where non-Muslim women are actually starting to put on the hijab just to avoid being raped. Wonder if that has anything to do with those verses in the Quran that I just mentioned. Wonder if that has anything to do with the origins of the Quran. Why Umar bin al-Khattab begged Muhammad to enforce the hijab. We know about that, right? Why al-Khattab begged Muhammad to enforce the hijab? Well, I wonder if that all has something to do with so many members of the religion of peace believing they have a right to rape women that are not in the hijab. And so maybe this is a nice thing to do. Just once again to repeat that making non-Muslim women wear the hijab will spare them from rape in the future or even in the present. So maybe it's a kind thing to do and a protective thing to do. I encourage everybody to watch the Glazov Gang's 10-part series on the hijab. Just Google Glazov Gang 10-part series hijab, and you'll be able to open up your eyes a little bit if you need to learn a little bit about the hijab in terms of what's happening here. So just to conclude, my friends, very interesting issue here of this acceleration of the hijab being worn in our culture, and at the same time, this chastisement and denouncement of people who engage in cultural appropriation. Something doesn't really fit here. Please get back to us, tell us what you think. And in the meantime, I'm wondering, should I hold my breath that the next time that a Catholic priest or a Catholic individual will get murdered in a jihad attack, should I hold my breath waiting for Muslims to get into the streets and go out into the streets or even attend a church and say the Our Father and Hail Mary out loud? Should I hold my breath waiting that the next time when there's a jihadist attack against Jewish people, that Muslim people will gather in a synagogue and say Jewish prayers and wear Jewish attire? Should I hold my breath? I'll see you on the next Jamie Glazov moment. Good night.